ego and our personality has lost track of what its purpose is,
What's real?
self-preservation, and it's lost track of what's real, thinking I need to preserve. And if I'm not seen in my gender ideology or in my race ideology or from my social class ideology, if I'm not seen in that, actually my life is threatened, and therefore I need to meet the situation as though that it's a war, it's a battle at my doorstep.
Men are not toxic. Men are the answer. Welcome to the Remasculation Podcast. This show is dedicated to the exploration, celebration, and pursuit of healthy masculinity in the modern world, taking men in our society from emasculation to remasculation. This podcast stands in service to all of humanity by taking a stand for good men everywhere. I'm your host, Michael Bates, and my mission is the conscious evolution of men and masculinity across this planet in our lifetime, one man at a time. And I am very, very excited to bring on my guest today, Mr. Frank Mondeose. Frank is a leading contemporary voice on love, eros, and relating, who embodies both the energies of play and pray. Lead faculty with ISTA, the International School for Temple Arts. He is a co-founder of the ReMENber Brotherhood Journey. He is a shamanic minister for Venus Rising Association for Transformation and creator of the lifestyle brand Monde Osé. Did I get that right, Frank?
Monde Osé, that's good.
Monde Osé. Pardonnez-moi, my French is not quite well, you know how it is. So Frank, you've touched the hearts of many and the minds of many, whether it's through the tantalizing of their imaginations at the multi-sensorial events that you used to produce, to inspirational interactions that have navigated people to accessing their personal power. You hold an unapologetic, no-nonsense container, and I can attest to that from personal experience, having joined you in a few of those at this point myself. It's really been an amazing experience as a men's work practitioner, facilitator, and leader myself, to see the way you hold space to allow people to step out of their comfort zones, meet their edges in I love this, in a compassionately ruthless manner. You hold tight containers, and it's a beautiful thing. And you are also teaching sexual shamanism in over 10 countries now. So very, very exciting. And Frank, I'm just so grateful to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. I loved your introduction of your explanation of your podcast, and I'm like, sign me up. We're hotline enroll to everything that you're preaching. So I feel like I'm in the right place. I'm excited for this conversation.
You are definitely in the right place, and so am I, Frank. And we've had the pleasure of sort of meeting each other as colleagues in this work, both of us sort of leading and holding these spaces. And I've had the privilege of coming in as a participant in the experiences that you hold, and obviously so much alignment in not just our way of being, but also the way we view this work. There are very few men that I know in this world, in this work, on this planet, that have, as I put it, sort of grokked the seemingly opposing opposites, the ability to have both presence and power, kindness and killer instinct, strength and sensitivity. And again, this podcast is really dedicated to putting forth this idea of what I like to call the third man, this sort of emerging man, where there's this combination of sensitivity, vulnerability, all these things that our conscious community has sort of brought forward in the last few decades, but that hasn't forgotten their spine, their balls, their ability to be men in the world. And we started this podcast, Frank, you just wrote an amazing article on your Facebook page. Starts off with, men have lost their spines, and a society of weak men is a failing society. Let's just jump into that. How do you see this sort of playing itself out, and what has been your experience, particularly in leadership, of witnessing this sort of society of weak men, as you say, and the failures that it has brought?
Yeah, so when I speak about weak men, let's start to break that down for first. It's like it's individuals that have allowed our values as a society or as a culture to degrade. And why we've allowed it is because the masculine is often the one holding the containment for flow and radiance and magic and the feminine to emerge. And what I have noticed in our culture, it started in and around like the Me Too movement, which we all recognize was an important and energetically shifting moment in our culture, of where we
Absolutely.
recognize that we needed as men to recognize the way we've unconsciously or systemically have dominated women in our culture for
Mhm.
forever, and we had to see how our shadow was playing out and that we unconsciously took. And so that was a big wake up call. And we, we needed the whole bigness that happened, the repercussions, the swinging of the pendulum. But what occurred in that moment was the beginning of the erosion of the masculine essence that has confidence and brings that energy to in service to the feminine. And ultimately, if we learned as a group, as a group of men, to go move towards these values of the reawakening masculine or the remasculization piece, and we fueled this like domineering energy that we usually have, competitive energy, and we funneled that towards the recognition of what we are here to do as men, which is to create containment, create safety, allow women to be in their full expression, whether it be sexually or making babies, procreating, being in a place where they could surrender and serve the well-being of the raising of the children, versus needing to get a second job, a third job for the family, to be a taxpayer in the system, to outsource the child rearing to the government or external sources. And so when we come back to the idea of a weak man, it's a man that is so desperate to fit in and be seen and accepted by the modern woman who is claiming her sovereignty and her strength and her power, and actually emasculates a man from what he's supposed to be serving in our society. And it's not a conscious thing necessarily. It's a dynamic that's playing out like a codependent
Yeah.
relationship. It's like, I'm scared to hurt you. I just want you to like me. So I'm gonna change the way I change. And the other side, it's more like, I'm taking my stand. I am independent. You need to see me in this. And we're like, yes, 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 whatever you need. And so the weak
Mhm.
man completely relinquishes his instinct of how he's supposed to show up in the sole purpose of gaining the approval or validation of the woman that he's either attracted to, wants to be friends with, or wants to be allied with, or to prove the alliedship. And in
Mhm.
doing so, surrenders or sacrifices or consciously forgoes their natural gifts of what they are here to serve in the social fabric, which is ultimately to support and serve devotionally and loyally the feminine aspect
Yes.
in relationship. But we cannot do that if our self-esteem has been completely broke down, and that every man in today's culture is holding the trauma and the wound, or the weight of the trauma of the wound of our ancestors, and not even the
Yes.
last generation, maybe generations back. So there's an awareness that we need to have, a sensitivity that we need to cultivate, an empathy that we need to feel into, and a compassion that we need to meet others, especially women or other genders, however it wants to play out, and not lose our essence at the same time. Because in foregoing our
Yeah.
essence, we are saying that we are not valuable. And if we're not
Mhm.
valuable, I'm just basically your little bitch to do as unsaid,
That's right.
you know. And I just
That's
want
right.
to say, trigger warning, this conversation is not going to be for just anybody. We're going to, the idea of what my intention is for this conversation as well is to have a discussion. That doesn't mean that
Yes.
everything that I say is right, that I'm a master. What I am is a philosopher, a sociologist. I'm in the world, I'm of the world. I speak from an experiential space of not only my own personal experience that is vast, but also through working with thousands of individuals in their deepest trauma, and studying where it is that they begin to divorce themselves from their instinct and their intuition in order to fit or play a role in society, So they divorce themselves to fit into society, and everybody's doing that, and nobody is authentic. And then we
Yes.
are also like tearing down what masculinity should be or shouldn't be. So it's coming from a judgment, and from a spiritual
Mm.
perspective, when we come from this judgment and this contraction, we recognize that we are out of the flow of spirituality, and out of the connection with source consciousness and the masculine essence of consciousness and being the
That's
witness.
Well, I think that's part of why I'm so excited to have you on this call, Frank, because you are someone who I feel is so qualified to have. I mean, you have your finger on the pulse of this, and because you are literally in front of, as you said, hundreds and hundreds of people a year, if not thousands of people a year, and you've been doing this for a long time. You've seen these trends sort of come in the front lines, as I have. All of these men showing up who are so emasculated as I was. Again, we're not here to point fingers. What I love about you too, Frank, is that I feel like you and I are not trying to find our place on either side of the culture war. We're trying to rise above it and realize both sides have something truly valuable to bring, and both sides have a shadow. And it is critical that we as men, for you, those of you listening, or as women, or as whatever body you're in, to recognize that we are all of the same species here. And there is a generation of emasculated and demoralized men that you and I see. And not only these men who are having struggles and challenges being in the world, but their partners, the women that are having to experience men in this, that then impacts them, where, we have, at least for the last couple generations now, generations of women who have been raised to be men, and generations of men who have been raised to be women. Now, again, me too. It's a good thing that happened. We need to bring these things out. The hippie movement, the feminism, all these things have been really critical, beautiful things that are now at this point of, taking things to the point that they've needed to take them to. And in a way, now it seems like there needs to be a check and balance on looking at what the unintended consequences of feminism have brought on. Not that it's bad, not that anyone is necessarily good or bad, but that there are these things that you and I are seeing, things that I personally, why this podcast is called Remasculation, my own process of being raised by a second wave feminist who, with all of her best intentions, tried to raise a good man. And I just internalized a lot of these qualities where in all of my relationships, I have abdicated power. I have, what do you want to do, honey? What do you need to do, my dear? What can I do for you? And stepped down off of my own divine pedestal, as though that was somehow what they were asking for, what the feminine is asking for. And I don't think that's what they're asking. I think there's an opportunity now for us both to rise. Go for it, Frank. Yeah, please.
I love what you're speaking about. And it's like, when you speak about the mother and the second wave feminism, but moving beyond even feminism, it's as women step into power and greater power, and their voice is more powerful. What has happened with the rhetoric and the narrative in the field is that it has amplified the shaming and guilting and blaming of all the problems of the world, of onto men. And so
Mm.
men, even though we know that this is not our fault, there is a shame and a guilt that we hold on, and we're like, am I allowed to be here? Am I allowed to be an expression? It's because really I just want you to have all the space that you have. But if you're not going to take a space, there's something that I would like to say. Is now the right time? Can I speak now? And this is like, I'm just giving
Yeah,
a drama
yeah,
kind of thing of showing how the energetic plays. And this is what I'm saying, that a man, he needs to feel confident. He needs to feel respected. He needs to feel admired. If he doesn't need the praise, he doesn't need the veneration, he doesn't need the parades, he doesn't need the glitz, the glamour, but he needs
he
to
needs the
know that at
respect.
the core that there is respect, because that is what feeds us to want to show up in the world. It's like, actually, me as a man, when I'm in any situation, whether it be with elders, whether it be with my teachers, whether it be my beloved, my intuitive feeling to how do I show up is like, how as a man, a able, strong, smart, sharp, visionary, organized man, how am I to serve these spaces with these individuals? Not because they're inferior to me, but because I respect them and I love them. And it is
Right.
my role as a man to ensure that the whole environment is safe, that it is comfortable, that is conducive to joy and well being. How's the lights? How's the temperature? As a man, I am tracking all of this all the time. I'm, taking people's luggages. I'm putting them in cars. Why? Because that's my duty. Because we recognize our duty. We recognize that we need or we desire to have a sense of importance or contribution to the space. And when we do it and we do a job that makes people just feel good, it makes us feel good. Not because there's a major reward, but because we took care of our clan. We took care of
Yeah.
the people that have either come before us and paved the way for us, or we're taking care of the people that are taking care of our hearts, or we're taking care of the little ones who are dependent. So our job is to take care. And if our culture would allow good awakening men, and disclaimer, man, you need to do the work, you need to wake up, you need to level up, integrate, have integrity, have honor. But if, culture wouldn't let us do, be ourselves and do the thing,
Yeah.
I think we would show up in a way that says, how do I contribute to this space versus how do I take from this space? And this is
Yeah.
also the part of the healing part of our upbringing as men in a more unhealthy culture in the way past of competition. So I like
Mhm.
competition. I like healthy competition. I think this
Me too.
supports a man to sharpen his skills. Like competition is our ability to continue to use the resistance in front of us to strengthen. When we're doing weights, we're using resistance to strengthen us. However, from a socio-cultural perspective, the idea of competition needs to like wane a bit so that this idea of cooperation needs to emerge. I think
Yeah.
instinctually we are a warring being, like humanity. It comes from chimps. We're coming from chimps and bonobos and whatnot. And people should
Yeah.
watch Chimp Empire. If you haven't watched Chimp Empire on Netflix, I highly
Yeah.
suggest it because our masculinity is linked to our instinct. Our instinct is linked to our primal. Our primal is linked to the primates. And when we watch Chimp Empire, we understand how men and our role of protection and service to the thing has actually a functional role to create an inner sanctum that is free to roam and be joyful and be worry free. But if the borders are not being patrolled and protected, there might be an attack. And this is ultimately what I'm saying. There's multiple things I'm saying in terms of
Yeah.
the primate piece, but
Well,
it's
there's
like
something so universal about tribalism, right? Tribalism is very human, and it comes from an era long past. Fortunately, for most of us, not all of us. There are a lot of places on this planet that it is still a nightmare in a lot of ways. But that you need, if people that showed up on the hill in front of your village that didn't look like you, chances are you and everyone you loved were about to die, and that is in our structure. And it's so critical with all this talk I hear about toxic masculinity and patriarchy and all this stuff. It's like, wait a second, like women weren't the only ones that have suffered over the last like men have been on battlefields for the last 5,000 years being hacked and blown to pieces to defend the good aspects of our society. And it makes me so mad when it goes that direction, as though tribalism is not a thing. Like it's normal to other people. And we've evolved beyond that now. And now we have an opportunity to do things differently and be different in the way we approach people and approach things.
However, I also do feel that unconsciously or subconsciously in our innate essence is there that vibration of protect my territory at all
Yeah,
costs.
of course.
And that happens when we are no
Mm,
longer in tribes. We are no longer in
yes.
clans. We are
Yeah.
so separated on the internet. So what we are
Mhm.
clinging to are ideologies being
Yes.
perpetuated or given to us.
What's the substitute for community? Yeah.
Exactly, and using it
Ideology is
as a
a
social
substitute.
control. So
Yes.
now our survival mechanism and our need to defend territory is in this virtual etheric value proposition that it is actually coming from the place of if I am not seen or if I don't protect myself here, my survival is at threat, which is not fact. So our
Yeah.
ego and our personality has lost track of what it's purpose
Of
is
what's real.
self-preservation,
Yeah.
and it's lost track of what's real, thinking I need to preserve, and if I'm not seen in my gender ideology or in my race ideology or from my social class ideology, if I'm not seen in that, actually my life is threatened, and therefore I need to meet the situation as though that it's a war, it's a battle
Yeah.
at my doorstep. And that's what
Yeah.
we're seeing in our culture right now. We're seeing people jumping on battlefields of ideology designed
Mhm.
to focus on how different and separate we are versus acknowledging that we are actually all one, first and foremost, from a spiritual perspective, all one from
Amen.
a race perspective, like a species
That's right.
perspective. And I want to
That's right.
plant one seed of a video I was recently watching from John Trudell, who is one of my teachers. He was a 20th century activist, big in the 60s, 70s, past,
Mm.
I would say, early 2000s, in the 2000s, but an amazing a being. And he basically studied, his whole life work was to study what he calls the predator class. And being a
Mhm.
Native American, he has a very keen eye on what the predator class was there to do: machine, money making, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he has his whole body of work is amazing. Anyways, he goes on to speak about something. He says, and this was in 2010, the video, and he's like, I'm looking around and I'm seeing us divide ourselves more and more by all our differences. We're seeing each other as genders. We're seeing each other's as races. We're seeing each other's as religions. We're seeing each other. But what we have failed to see each other is in the human being. If we would
Mm.
release all those differences that would lead to the separation and lead to the ideology culture wars, we would recognize that we are human beings. And the human is the animal, and the being is the spirit essence of ourselves, which is individual, which is in service, which is connected. And so, what you were saying is that we need to be more focused on the human being, the being side of
Mhm.
human,
Yes.
versus the focus on the separation of what we are. And yeah, and to bring that back to men and masculinity, even though that's an oxymoron, but we got to start somewhere. It's like recognizing how we are like what is our instinctual ways we move in certain situations. I don't know, getting food, like courting. What are those
Yeah.
typical traits that, and look at them and saying like, where are those coming? Are those toxic, unconscious? I could begin to let those go. But what is really my masculine trying to demonstrate in this moment? It's trying to
Yeah.
demonstrate my interest or my aliveness or my fire or my passion and my desire to be understood or express something for the evolution of culture or taking care
Yeah.
of someone. Oh,
Yeah.
that is authentically, instinctually masculine. Let's feed that because that's positive.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
also, I'm going to say this and then I'll give you the mic, but it's
No,
also
go for it.
the piece
Love your
of
passion, brother. That's why we're here.
right here. It's the intuition as well. So it's not, to me, instinct is biology and
Mhm.
intuition is more spirit or our connection to spirit.
Yeah.
And the intuition is this place of either having learned from experience, okay, that's the lived experience, and also that sixth sense that we have sometimes, that knowingness, that psychic connection, that vibration in our belly. That to me is the glimpse into the intuition. And the intuition is highly important. And although intuition, I don't think is gendered or whatnot, but it comes from a place of that we are anchored in the biology of human male. And so I
Yeah.
meet the world from hormonally a different place as well as a perceptive different place. So we
Yeah.
need to stop changing the way we feel, think, sense, act to fit in with a new culture that's saying that there are no genders, which I disagree with. You could be whatever you want. You could be no gender, you could be gender neutral, you could be a they, you could be a she, he. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter to me. Everybody is entitled to their expression, and I will respect that. But when it comes to my value system or my understanding of science and whatnot, I understand at the core, and I understand there's anomalies in between, but at the core,
Mm.
there are two genders. And to ignore that is a statement of ignoring science. I don't know. We went for so many years under believe the science, and now, like, when it comes
Well,
to
it's an
anatomy,
Yeah. Well,
we gotta
it's an
believe we
ignoring
gotta believe
of
science.
the entire biological paradigm of the entire universe, which is bifurcated into two opposing opposites. And so even in a way, I was having this conversation with a friend of mine the other day. The beauty behind the desire to be non-binary to me is there's something beautifully spiritual in that, of seeking the one, of seeking to go beyond the binary, but you still have the binary. It's even in the language that is used, the two pieces. So it's like it's there. But as again, growing up in the way that I did, I didn't even think that men had an intuition, because all I ever heard was feminine intuition, feminine intuition, feminine intuition. And in the work and the workshops and the retreats that I do now, it's a big part of bringing in that masculine intuition, the hunter's intuition, the part of you that does know how to, even if it's going to the grocery store, how to do that in a way. I love shopping for my woman. Like, I love just even going to the store, going to Costco. It feels great to do. There's something about that that feels really powerful. And again, just I love the way you're pointing to this sort of challenge of, in 2016, when the Me Too movement kind of popped and started to sort of show all of these shadows that had been there for a really long time. At the same time, the highest selling book of all time emerged, which was 50 Shades of Grey.
What
So
a joke. What a
there's
joke.
this thing that I try to tell my men. It's like, it's not that women don't want us to be powerful and strong and in a way dominating as an act of love consensually, but it's can we, again, can men merge these two qualities where you can create a container where you can ask permission when it's correct to do so, and be able to bring in the sensitivity of feeling into their experience, but then also without having emasculated, castrated, cut off the energy, the life force. For me, for so long in my life, I wasn't able to put myself into my purpose. I wasn't able to put my sort of, to use esoteric terminology, my third chakra, my sort of thrust into the world wasn't there, because I was so afraid of that energy, that sort of penetrative energy that's really beautiful in men, of like, this is what I want, this is what I do, this is what I'm about, this, I'm going to go and get that. I'm going to claim this piece. I'm going to claim the lion's share that is mine by right, based on the way I behave and embrace things. And so there's this, yeah, all of these different pieces sort of floating together, right? And you mentioned before too, the sort of constructive criticism versus destructive criticism that's so necessary for men to receive, in a way of how we can still be the healthy aspects of competition, but then also recognizing, again, like, there's a first place winner and everyone can get a trophy, but there's still a first place and a second place and a third place.
Exactly. For me, what's the most difficult is this push for, like, elimination or sterilization or watering down of the masculine, because I guess some either past story of what we were and unconscious,
Yeah.
or this future story of where we're going, where we're like, actually, that your behavior is like offensive, and actually we want
Mhm.
to go towards something much more neutral and less, polarizing. And to
Yeah.
me, it's not okay. It's not okay. Like, I'm at a place where I'm accepting of everybody, of sexual identity, sexual expression, sexual orientation. I'm alternative in many ways, and I'm not, like, visibly or obviously queer, but in some ways there could be an argument for my queerness as well, or my sex work that I do or whatnot. So, but at the same time, I'm going to claim what I am. And that's a man. I am proud to be a man. I feel good to be a
Mhm.
man. I also really enjoy learning how to be an upgraded man. There's nothing more that I like than learning from my beloveds after making a mistake again and again and again, and having their care and love and continue to unpack it for me so I could see it. And I'm like, oh, I'm not a bad person, but I could be better, or I could be creating better environments if I learned these pieces, like going from brute to graceful. You know what I mean? And I'm
Sure.
rough around the edges. And I'm not apologizing for it anymore. It's not for me to apologize for somebody else being offended by my size, my voice, my tone, my tattoos,
Mm,
my expressions,
yeah.
my desires, my likes, my dislikes. It's me. So the same way that I am willing to and happy and encouraging and celebrating your expression, don't
Yeah.
take my expression away from me, and don't come to me and tell me that any way that I'm behaving somehow is offensive because it's toxic masculinity or whatnot. You might have a problem
Oh,
with
man.
the way
Yeah.
my expression lands. And if you have a problem with my expression lands, you have a choice to how you meet it. You could engage and try to teach me. You could choose to fight with me, which I think is the most the least effective use of energy, or you could choose not to engage and leave. That's what a mature adult would do. What we have is
Mm.
a culture of childish, adults, child minds in adult
Yeah.
bodies who want what they want and how the society has to look and see me and treat me and whatnot. And if I don't get it, I'm having a tantrum.
A tantrum.
And,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
It
not in
seems
an
really
emotional
interesting, right?
release way. Not an
Ri
emotional
You're
release way.
right, 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 right. Well, it seems like there's this abdication of responsibility from those individuals who require someone else to validate them in their own experience, which is, to me, is just
I'm over that.
asking for trouble in regardless of how you're doing it. It's sort of like you were talking about in your article and how we sort of spoke about men looking to women to validate them and validate their reality, looking for your boss to validate your existence within the company versus this is who I am, this is how I am. If you're going to treat me with respect, wonderful. If you're not, I'm out of here. Like no matter
So
what happens. So what do you think that's coming from, Frank? That
it's the
abdication of
outside,
responsibility.
that outside validation. Ultimately, I don't know where it comes from. There's another psychological thing we could unpack. But what I can tell you is that there is no power in it. Everybody wants more power. Everybody wants to, the best way we get power nowadays from weak people, especially weak men, where we go is we target power and we attack power and we try to tear it down so that we could borrow some of the shine, but it doesn't last
Yeah.
for long at all. That's not fucking power. There's no power in trying to control other people's behaviors, whether it's good behavior or bad behavior. There's no power in that. Where the power comes from is in personal choice, in personal
Yeah.
validation. If I'm waiting for the outside world to say Frank Mondeose is a fucking good man and that he's this or he's that, then I will be moving like I was moving in the past, like a weak man who is groveling for attention for the least bit, and then the next person gives it. So my attention is here, and then the next person is there, and there's no backbone, there's no solidity, there's no clarity of who I am. All of my steps are wobbly. But when I validate myself and I say, Frank, it doesn't matter what the world thinks. You move with integrity. You speak the truth. You give people choice all the time. You are generous. You open your heart. You accept people for who they are. You try to meet people into who their experience. I'm a good person. You don't see it. I don't give a rat's ass. You don't have to see it. My masculinity, it doesn't matter. I think my masculinity is
Yeah.
hot.
And it's not about saying fuck you to them, right? Fuck you, you don't
No,
see me. It's just like, no, I'm
no.
sourcing my own power internally or from something greater than myself. I mean, I heard Jordan Peterson say once that God, if for the secular people out there, you can think of God as representing your highest ideal. So if you don't subscribe to a religious construct, beautiful. What's your highest ideal? Are you working towards that thing and bringing that energy into your life? And do you have something greater than your ego, your narcissism, your focus that's me, 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 to the degree that I got my attention off of me and onto my work, onto my purpose? And this brings us to the men's work piece, right? And you've got such a powerful, powerful, man. I love your container that you run with this is so brilliant. The ability to bring men into the focus of what their mission is and what they're here to do. And to the degree that I've experienced it and I've led men into it and I've seen men get clear on their purpose, they just rise. They just start to just sort of they become subservient to something greater than themselves in a good way, an ideal,
Exactly.
a mission. Yeah. Go ahead, Frank.
But so let's join all these, connect all the dots here. So
Yes.
this piece of validation, I got heated and passionate. That's me. Guess you know me. And it's
Yeah,
not
watch the video, guys, if you see Frank and his greatness. Come on.
I think the energy, like if there was a fuck you energy in the validation piece, it's like I want to celebrate everybody in who they are, but the energetic of taking, it's like give me, taking, taking, taking is disempowering. So when I'm talking to the brothers, I'm talking and saying, validate yourself. Don't expect anybody to validate you anymore. Don't look
Mm,
for validation from a woman. Don't look for validation from your parents. Don't look for validation in a boss. If you are looking for validation, it means your momentum, your desire, your impulse in life is constantly going towards the outside approval. That is a
yeah,
surefire way to drain energy and stay
yeah,
out of your sacred purpose. But when
yeah.
we choose to validate ourselves, it's like, okay, the self confidence does not come from the reflections of the others,
Mhm.
like needing it, but
Yeah,
really coming to the self and saying, I'm okay. I'm going to move out into the world, moving from my most highest self or my most honorable self or the part that has the most integrity that I have access to in moment to moment to moment. Because, we have wounds and we have shadows and we get,
sure,
taken up. Now, the
sure.
validation piece goes to,
Yeah, how does a man validate himself, Frank, if he doesn't feel if he's sourcing validation externally, right? It means he's not validating himself. Validate yourself. How? How does he do that from your perspective?
So I would say that's men's circles,
Yeah,
brothers, finding
yeah.
places where you can. So I think the best way to validate yourself is to find yourself in safe containers where you can be in full expression, whether it be the dense emotion of depression, sadness, grief, and feel safe enough to show it and expressed. Because it's only when it's showed and expressed and you are held or met with a reflection of neutrality at minimum is
Yes.
like, great, brother. It's like, sure, neutrality or
Yeah, bring
positive,
it.
that expression could be out. And it's like, it's like holding your fucking baggage. It's like when you're holding on to like all these inner things, our inner selves, our grief, our anger, or whatnot, and trying to keep it together and be the ally and put the smile on the
Yeah,
face and da da dee 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 dee. That's a time
it's
bomb
not
waiting
real.
to go off. So by creating being in spaces where you could be in full expression, then you could see your beauty even in your ugliness. And when you
Mm,
start to see how what a beautiful heart you have when you put
mhm.
down the armor and you see
Yeah,
the sweetness of the person at the core of this who had to put on layers and layers of armor in order to be in the world, that's when you start to find the joy and the sweetness in yourself again, and you're like, actually, I'm not that fucking bad. I've been through some ugly shit.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
quite proud of who I am, that I got through that X, Y, or Z trauma. And actually, when I look back on it, it's because of that I am this, and that. And that I would not trade in for the world, because it really makes me special in the world, it really makes me who I am.
Yeah.
And so when we bring all those things
Mm,
back, then it's like, then it comes to the place. So brothers and the ability to do the work and go into the grief and the density. And then it's like, oh, I'm okay, actually. And it's okay if they don't see it. And
yeah.
it's a building up. It has to flow.
And it's a
And
bringing it to the men, right? It's a bringing it to the men, to the brotherhood, to the circle, being able to source that from our brothers and be seen in that. And again, the work that you do and that I do is so critical around.
And I would say definitely, I think men is a great place to be. And I also don't want to be like, dogmatic. I also believe if you've got women in your life, for example, who are not love interests, who have been solid friends in your life, who see you and know you and are willing to hold space, and that you don't have the intention to court them in a relationship, then I would
Mhm.
say that's a safe space to do it with as well. But definitely not with the beloved. It's
No,
not
no.
necessarily the case.
Stop turning your woman into your teacher, your therapist, and your mom. Not sexy. You're not
Exactly.
supposed to fuck
Exactly.
your therapist. Don't do it. But
So
again, yeah, that and
I got to like transition to this other piece. So, because you spoke about
mhm,
something so on purpose that was leading into the sacred purpose,
yeah,
which would be the recognition of the higher source. And you
yes.
said if you're, you don't have the belief in a source, power, whatever, the highest ideals. So when we are self-validated and we are, putting in the reps and feeling our fullness and like, actually, I am that person. Okay. That then we could start saying, okay, now that I know that I'm a good person, I don't have to be spending all my energy proving it to all these fucking people that I don't really care what they think about me in the first place, in the true place. What am I doing with all my fucking energy? And ultimately, it's not about making money. It's not about getting more women and having more sex. It's not. It's about funneling all this energy in serving something bigger than us. In some
Your
people,
personal
that's
power.
family,
Yeah.
a child. Other people, it's community service. Other people, it's like activism. Other people, it's being a founder of a movement or whatnot. Whatever it is, it's something bigger than you that you're doing, not for the benefit of yourself, although there could be byproduct, but but
Certainly.
you're doing it for the service and the expansion of your environments and your surroundings coming from generosity and love that is not looking for a return on the investment. That's when we start to hit our sacred purpose. And
Yeah.
I don't think you could truly be on a an authentic, powerful, mission oriented, sacred purpose journey and be looking outside of you for validation. It's possible. Everything is possible. We've seen people do all kinds of amazing feats, but I
Mhm.
don't think that it's in the alignment of the higher version of yourself that you're actually attuning to.
Yes, I agree. I agree. And again, the first most critical piece that I do with my men, with my clients and my guys is what are you here to do? And if you're not doing it, why? What's in the way? What's blocking that? And again, the degree of personal power that is gained from figuring out what is actually in the way, what is holding you back, what is taking your energy, where are you abdicating your throne, where are you abdicating your energy and your power? And if you're not feeling respected, what do you do when you don't feel respected? What do you do when you're in an environment where you're not being respected? And for me, Frank, it took me so long to even get it. It would just go right over my head, and I'd kind of smile dumbly, like Robert Glover describes in No More Mr. Nice Guy, just kind of like not even realizing that I'm being insulted, emasculated, sort of used as a emotional and sometimes physical punching bag for the feminine in her many forms, and just like thinking I needed to take it, thinking I needed to do that. And so I know there's so many men out there that struggle with that. But what do you do when you feel not respected, or if you're in a scenario where the respect
It's
is not
quite
there?
a good question because, like, I want to say to all your viewers and anybody that gets to hand on this video, it's like, I'm a work in progress. Man, the reason I'm doing all of this stuff is because all this work and committed to the other people's transformation is because I do transform as well. And I reshape my karma from the
Yeah.
past where I was the unaware, violent, aggressive, abusive type masculine at a different portion of my life for whatever reasons, and that is like a shame that you hold, and that doesn't go away. And so for me, I've been like growing and I do all this work so that I can show up in the most powerful, least reactive way. That's my personal journey. So disclaimer, I'm not a master of anything except for the experience that I've had and the vision that I like to share mostly as a critical discussion point, but not as true. But why I'm saying all this is because, yeah, this has been a difficult place in my life. Because when I, in the past, wasn't feeling respected, what from my developmental trauma with Kim comes up is that actually this is a not safe space and it'll either come
Mm.
with emotional, physical, or like spiritual burden that actually is not something I want to carry. So the minute I'm starting to be treated without respect, where I'm coming is to assert my dominance in order to like be seen, and but that's a defensive reaction. And ultimately, what I saw was when I was moving from a defensive reaction, obviously not coming from a king space, it's coming from the boy scared, well, what am I to lose here at this situation? They're not respecting me, and I am willing to do anything to regain my respect here. That's the unconscious, not scared. And so for me, the aware masculine, it's the recognition. This is the biggest piece that's changing in my life, and it's changing my life exponentially. It's recognizing that I do not necessarily have the power to change people, people's ideas, beliefs, behaviors, habits, organizations, standards. I can't change it. Like, maybe organizational, you could go through the fucking lines, the red tape and whatnot. But when you can't change something and you're feeling disrespected in that moment, if you choose to engage, recognize that that is a choice that I am doing. If I choose to engage, I am making that point. So now I'm saying I'm investing energy here. Okay, what do I
Yeah.
want at the end result of the energy? Oh, I want goodness or to be respected. Okay, now what do I need to do in order to get that end goal? Being reactive and telling everybody off is not going to make it easier to that. And that's what I've
Yeah.
had to learn. It's been very difficult
Yeah.
pathways. But ultimately, bottom line, what I do when I'm not feeling respected is number one, I feel into my body and I get into, like you're saying, I didn't even know. I sense, ooh, that landed weird. Why did that land weird? Find like what's going on, feel what's coming up, then try to understand it with the mind of saying, oh, this is up. I'm feeling disrespected because of XYZ. Okay, now how do I want to address it? I could either try to have a clearing conversation just to be heard and expressed, but not be attached to the way it's received and or any changes happening. So this is me speaking my truth as far as you were such a jerk to treat me like that, and I'm over it, or I'm not over it. There's like getting into right relationship. Oh, I am learning that you lack respect, so much respect for me here in this situation. I thought we were in a relationship of depth and intimacy of XYZ. I recognize through your behavior, maybe not your words, but through your behavior, that we're not in that situation. Instead of me trying to tell you I have to try to change your behavior to make me happy, I will say, actually, they are showing me what they are. So now, what is right relationship with this person? How do I mean to change or put them in a different box or in a different sphere to recognize that this is who they are and this is what they think of me, and I could still be in relationship with them, but not from the overly invested place that I thought we were going to build a business together or whatnot. Is getting into right relationships, shifting things. And finally, is walking away, because if the people are not respecting you and you're not getting the base that you deserve, then it's best to be alone. In French, we say mieux seul que mal entouré. It's better to be alone than to be badly surrounded.
Mm, I love that. That's a good mantra.
So yeah, it's like, to me, it always comes down to choice. That's the reclamation and the remasculation of power, is the idea of I give choice constantly, meaning I give everybody the full picture so that when they say yes, that they're choosing into the full picture, so that I know I could be fully me and not have to pretend and be something because they don't know something, because it's better they don't know, it's going to make my life easier, kind of thing. I give people
Yeah.
choice all the time. They have answer. They could walk away at any time. And I recognize that I have choice and I could walk away at any time. The dissonance comes in when I don't want to walk away because it's so good, or it's my financial funnel, or it's my sex funnel, or it's my love funnel. And I don't want to give it up, but I'm seeing that the behavior is so disrespectful that I shouldn't be there anyway. And I say, no, I'm staying and I'm going to change them. That's where toxicity really starts to cultivate, because
Yeah.
we are not in the power position. We are trying to get our needs met while recognizing we're not getting our needs met.
Yeah, it's a co-creation, right? You're part of it. You're 50% of the creation of the thing that is resulting in you feeling not respected or invalidated. Yeah, it's really real. So something that I think relates to that, I this trope these days in the spiritual community, from so many women, where are all the good men? Where are the men? Where are they? I'm ready. Where are they? For me, I really want to flip that on its head too, in the sense of, well, where are the good women? Where are the women who aren't emasculating their men, who understand that a man wants to be respected and wants to be able to come home to nourishment and ease and all of that. So what do you think women and the women in our community need to know about men right now, or how can we serve our sisters in better meeting our brothers in this moment?
It's a big one. And so, it's on the fly. I mean, we could do probably a course on this, right? And
Sure.
this is like the initial brainstorm. So Yeah, I think women need to recognize that a man finds his self-worth in the world. Some men, some of the time, find their self-worth in the world based on the gift of their presence and their service to relationship. And where men need to take responsibility here is that we need to wake up to that piece and stop trying to get or take from relationship. And of course, when we show up with the love and the essence that we are, we will get. And when we make great sexual connections, we can take. It's all available. But that's not what we lead with. So
Yeah,
everything has it. It's like you said. It's both sides. So women,
yeah,
if they rest in the fact that if a man is in relationship with you, it's because he wants to be there. Whether he's poly or monogamous, if he's investing his energy, he wants to be there. So release some of the energy of like trying to control or know. It's like women want to know. I want to know that I'm his girlfriend. I want to know my position. I want to know that I'm the most important in his life. I want to know that tomorrow we're still in relationship. It's at wanting to know. And that's funny because it's counterintuitive to the feminine who operates in the unknown, who is with the magic of the chaos. So
sure.
that like I want to know is actually old paradigm coming from the fear of the actual who they were. So they want us to be different things because they're different, but they still meet us are from the place that you were, which is insecure that if I don't have a man that's going to take care of me and chooses me, that I won't have a future and I won't be able to raise my child and I won't be able to da 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 da. Da. That's the past. The past was women
Yeah.
would find their social status based on the men that they would marry because the men was their pathway to freedom and as
Yeah.
well as
And without that, they're lost. They're cast
they're
aside. They're
unsafe.
outcast. It's
Exactly.
very unsafe. Not just
Exactly.
them, their children, their offspring, that which matters most.
Completely
So
understandable.
totally
So,
understandable. Totally.
for
And
example,
Frank too, I love your passion, Frank. Just the audio is getting a little blown out. So just be aware of
oh,
the
cool.
volume. But I love it, man.
Thank
Keep
you.
coming, keep coming. Yeah.
Projecting. I want to project. Okay, good.
That's great.
Thank you. So like the recognition that we don't need to know. We're talking about relational love, especially when we're in the dating, in the courting phases. It's not your responsibility to know. It's your responsibility to continue creating experiences, co-creating experiences, the two of us, that are joyful, that are nourishing, that are progressive. They can be difficult that lead to expansion. That's good too. Like difficult
Yeah.
conversations to get to know each other, to build deeper intimacy. This is what we want to be cultivating, not the knowing of the label that I am safe tomorrow in this relationship. I get where it comes from, but it doesn't serve when we're doing the pulling of that energy and putting choking the life force, the natural life force that wants to emerge in its natural progression. So that's one. So after that would be in and around of emotions and blaming and shaming and whatnot. I would say it's normal for us to have emotions. All of us have emotions. And what I've learned from some really great women in my life, some conscious great women who are patient and loving with me, have taught me that sometimes, the emotions are just an expression of what's alive. And it doesn't mean that what we are doing as men is wrong. So it's okay to have emotions and it's okay to take personal responsibility for the why of those emotions, but track where we project onto the men or the beloved, whatever gender, that
Yeah.
where we're like putting that I'm mad because of you, or you made me sad, or can't you see what you did to me? Like this type of energy is the engagement of saying that my emotions can be created by another. And I'm saying to flip it and recognize the emotions are a feeling sense that comes from within, often triggered by past wounds and traumas, which
Hmm.
sometimes men may touch, play on, and that we're coming from an unconscious having sensations and then want to say it's your fault. So I'd say the gift here would be recognize your emotions, feel your emotions. And when you want to share them, say something along the lines of, like, I just want to share with you my emotions. I'm not saying that you're wrong or bad, but this is the way I'm feeling. And I want to be able to have that presence in the space so that you can understand me more. And so this supports men from not being blamed or shamed, because what happens when we feel blamed or shamed, we end up going into defensiveness, and now we want to fix it. We want to
Yeah.
fix the thing. We want to fix the thing by either showing that we're not to blame, or we want to
Yeah.
fix it by helping you put the pieces together to make it better. And that's not what you
Yeah.
want. You just want to be heard.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that women could do.
Yeah, and what a way to empower men to be able to just hear you, because it's so easy for us to make it about us, even when it's not about us, and to then go defensive, and then and I'm saying this, I do this in my relationship a lot. It's frustrating. I know this stuff. I teach this stuff, and it's still so ingrained that it still is like, wow. Okay, wait a second. Reset. Okay, okay, okay. Got it. So, all right, Frank. So we've covered the feminine side. We've talked a lot about men as well, but for so many men out there listening, what are the steps, or what are some of the initiatory stages, the technology, as I like to call it, that we can empower them with in this moment of emasculation, this moment of, as you said, a sort of a culture and a tradition that is creating spineless men, and that may or may not, have a dark side to it. Why is that happening? Why are men being sterilized in so many different ways? Is it, to, as you speak about, to sort of allow for more authoritarianism to be brought into the world? What is it that men can do to sort of push back and start to stabilize themselves, to start to create a foundation where they can believe in themselves, where they can validate themselves, where they can be respected by themselves and other men, and thus by the women in their lives?
So to just to start, and you alluded to it, like the why it's happening. This is my trend analysis, my forecast analysis. I started off as a marketer, so advertising. So I actually understand how social communication is happening in order for us to plant ideas and values and beliefs, because that's what you do when you're trying to sell a product. So I
Yep.
see the way it's being rolled out in our culture, and then also being with like people, there's psychology, and then when you put people together you have sociology. So this is my background, what I studied and where I come from. And so it's not true, but it's a perspective. And what I see is, I see a this as a psyop towards this, movements towards a great reset, whatever position you want to see on it. And it has to do with, because look, in a society that has strong men with strong boundaries and the recognition that their job is to serve and protect their families first and foremost, and will give up their life to do it.
And not just
That's
as individuals, but as a collective.
exact. That's
Yeah.
where we keep the checks and balances of any society in order. Remember, the government was developed to serve.
By the people, for the people. That's right.
Correct. And now what we
Of the
have is
people.
we have a globalist movement and agenda in order to enslave them in digital currencies and 15-minute cities and social credit scores, which will manage your mobility and your access to everything that you
It's
know how
already
to do.
happening in China, right?
It's
It's already being
happening
beta
more in
tested.
China. It's like people are
Yeah.
tired. As I was saying this in 2020, they're saying it's a conspiracy theory. You guys are clowns if you continue saying that. It's watch it, do it's happening. So from the this is what I'm saying, from the marketing
Side.
advertiser, I see it all happen. So why are we being emasculated, and then we bring on a woke culture that truly is coming from a good place of saying justice, equality, fairness, well being, collectivism. These are fucking good values. But the woke movement is an agenda, and I think it's all a psyop to create
Psychological operation.
and psychological operation by the government to create division and to slowly emasculate men so that we do not rise up and stand and be willing to give our life against a authoritarian regime that is there to serve us and not to enslave us, and for us to ask for permission to go to the neighboring city. That is the reason. So even what's happened in Maui and Hawaii right now, this is not climate change. It's not a fire. This is something else that has happened. And if it is something
Mm,
else that has happened, designed to clear out a population of people in order so that they could rebuild a 15-minute city managed by AI so that they could have their conference and all the elites could have their full out island while everybody else is locked in a fucking 15-minute city, well, then who do you think is going to stop that from happening? It's not the children. It's not. It's going to be the men of the culture and a select few of women who have strong masculine and are willing to hold the line. And then we need the backup. And if we are going to survive, we need all the women and we need all the men to come online and hold the boundary. So that's the
mm,
why. And I'm not even
mm,
pulling punches anymore. Label me whatever you want. You can't affect somebody that is fully self-validated and knowledgeable.
mm,
And
mm,
so now we talk about how do we support men to rise or reawaken, okay? I would say it's the piece around boundaries. Ultimately, it's boundaries. From the very simple perspective of somebody talks to you in a disrespectful tone or whatnot, it's the loving reflection. If you're in a loving relationship, the loving reflection is sorry, I'd like to give you a reflection. Are you open to a reflection? Yes. When you speak to me in that tone, it puts me in defensiveness. It makes me, feel like there's something wrong with me. I'm going to ask you not to speak to me like that again. I understand that there's habits and you might do it again. And so if you do it, I'm going to keep on pointing out to it and saying
here's the boundary.
to bring awareness to it. So that's a very simple way. And it's the men say no. And ultimately, for a man to say no and to draw a boundary, ultimately he needs to be in touch with his eternal feminine. So you
Mm,
know what makes strong men? What makes strong men are men that are in touch with their feminine. Why? Or their inner child. Why? Because when we are in touch with the sensitive aspects of ourselves or the wounded aspects of ourselves, we have more information, we have access to more knowledge, to more content to feed us to recognize that what is going on. So if I'm in a relationship with a woman and she wants something and I'm like, Frank, who wants to serve women all the time and be the good man, he could do it and he'll do it and he'll do it again and 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 again. But when Frank tunes into the inner feminine that's saying, no, Frank, you've been going so hard. This is your day to relax. You had the plan to just lie down and do nothing, Netflix and chill. That was your plan. Now you could do the other thing, but I'm telling you, your girlfriend, your inner feminine is saying, stop, I need to relax and I need to do some inner nourishment. So when Frank hears that his inner feminine is saying no, I then
yeah.
have to turn out to the outward and the woman that I want their attention, validation, da, 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 and willing to dig deep and do this needs to show up and say, I'm sorry, I'm not available for this. Yeah, but you said da 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 da. I get
Mm,
it. I get it.
yeah,
So
boundaries, boundaries,
what the
boundaries.
boundaries and it's actually getting like our culture is so avoidant of uncomfortable situations that we're willing to lie, avoid, run away, then rather have a difficult conversation and say, actually, I'm a no to that.
Well, and of course, from male rites of passage and traditional rituals of boyhood into manhood, it all comes about through the adding in of discomfort and the ability to find comfort in a state of discomfort, which is the first practices that I put my men through. Training for discomfort. We go to the gym and we train our biceps. Why wouldn't we train our discomfort muscle to be able to? So when life does throw things at us, we've trained for it. We're ready for it. We're ready to stand our ground and hold that boundary. And in order to be able to hold a boundary, men, you have to know what your boundaries are. And you have to know how you feel about things. You have to have done the work to clarify your beliefs, where you stand, what you're willing to take, and under what circumstances. And of course, life is going to throw the feminine at you, which will bring something completely unpredictable out of the void that you'll have never, oh, wow, like I could have had this team of Hollywood screenwriters for a year and never would have come up with this possibility. So yeah, that's going to happen, but you got to train if you want. And ladies, anybody in any body, if you want to train your masculine aspects: structure, stability, boundaries, clarity, clarifying, consistency. Clarity plus consistency creates momentum. Momentum over time creates change. That's the formula for my coaching work. That's it. It works. Frank, obviously, man, we can riff for days and days and days and days, and we've been at it for a while. I know we've got to wrap up here. You've got something to do. I've got a client I've got to pop over to, but man, what would you say in the next two? I'm going to give you 2 minutes for your teaching. You death comes for you tomorrow, as it will at someday, as it will for me, as it will for all of us. Memento mori. But this is the aggregate of your teaching, the aggregate of your dissemination to all of us in the world.
Minutes. Here we go. An individual, a man cannot be, or an individual, man or woman, cannot be in service to the collective if they are not an individual that is cultivated in self love. To self love, we need to first nourish and take care of ourselves. The biggest resource in self love is universal love. It's understanding that we are always and already in love, and that we have a direct pipeline to source and to be in love. So we source ourselves from the source. So that's when we say we're resourcing, we are resourcing. So we take universal love, we bring it into ourselves, we cultivate self love, we overflow with self love. And when we're overflowing with self love, it is at that point that we are in the position to bless someone with the outward expression of love, which is a generosity. And for me, when we are in relational love, I define relational love as supporting, contributing, and or celebrating the expansion of the beloved, of the friend, and or of the community. And as long as we go all in love, self-love, resource, universal love, and recognizing that love is a generous energy, it's not an energy that takes in, it's an energy that gives out, that we need to be resourced, and that we come from support. I support my friends. I either contribute to their expansion, or I, as the minimum, celebrate their expansion. And although that sounds like obviously that's easy, I tell you it's difficult, because when the thing that they want to do goes against our personal interests, then it really becomes hard to love. And this is when we truly show how loving we are, when we could put ourselves aside,
10
our
seconds.
needs, our wants, in order to prioritize the love that exists between us, and be able to say, I will do what I have to do, even if that includes stepping away.
Huzzah.
Huzzah. Let love
Huzzah.
free, baby. Let love free. It's the only way we change anything.
You guys can find Frank's work at www.frankmondeose, that is MONDEOSE.com. Frank leads ISTA Level 1 and ISTA Level 2 as well, International School of Temple Arts. For you men out there, if you want to go through a container with that organization that is very well held by a man in integrity, I cannot recommend Frank enough. Seriously. It's been an honor to speak with you, my brother, as always, to riff, to get into the feminine flow as we do, and then hold our masculine spines straight and erect for all to behold. So thank you, my friend, for getting into it. And I feel like this is just chapter one. So stay tuned for
Absolutely. There's just
for
so
chapter
much.
two coming down the
So
pipe.
much.
Yep. So
All
much.
right,
Frank,
Thank
I
you
love you,
so
my
much.
friend. You got it. Be well.